Hello. Today I'm going to read to you a poem by the famous Irish poet William Butler Yeats. The title of the poem is The Song of Wandering Aengus. And it is basically a magical tale about a man's obsession with a fairy. It should be understood in the Irish culture, the fairy or the little people, the elves and sprites, were not seen as perhaps you might see them in Disney movies. We're not talking about Tinkerbell. The fairy were mysterious, magical, but mischievous, often dangerous. People had a sort of sense of fear of the possible bad or bad magic of these mysterious creatures. Nobody knew exactly what form they could take. So just it's a kind of an encounter with the magical and the unfamiliar and perhaps dangerous. So I will approach this a little differently. Today I'm going to just go through a line by line close read first. There will be no need to break out any vocabulary for this one. Then I'll go ahead and have a straight reading at the end. And if you stick around a little bit longer, then I'll also talk a little bit about the rhyme and meter of the poem. But let's go ahead and do that close read now. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head. So he went out to the woods where the hazel trees are because something was burning in his mind. Something got him, excited or something. And cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. So he cut out a kind of a stick from the hazel wood and made what looks like basically a fishing rod out of it with a thread and a berry for a lure. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, so it's just a picture of the night with the moths flying and the stars also looking like moths, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. So he caught a fish with his little fishing rod. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. So he caught the fish, placed it on the ground, went to blow the fire up a little bit so it becomes hotter and flames are coming out, and suddenly there's a movement and he hears his name, mysteriously. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair. So the fish has now magically transformed itself into a girl who's kind of glowing with a faint light. With apple blossom, so she has a flower from an apple tree in her hair. Who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. So this is kind of like the morning twilight. The stars have sort of faded in the sky. The light is just becoming slightly brighter. And this mysterious fairy person who transformed herself from a fish has run off and vanished. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone and kiss her lips and take her hands. So he, I imagine here, is now many years later. He is still obsessed and following and wandering. Where has this girl or fairy disappeared to? And walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. So now he's just having a sort of a fantasy or magical vision of what his great happiness will be when he finally finds this fairy girl and he can travel to the moon and sun. It's just a fantastic vision. Okay? So that's it for making sense of the lines. Let me go ahead and read through the poem straight. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done, the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. Okay, so there you go. A little romantic vision of a man who's driven to obsession by having met a fairy one night while catching fish. So as I said, maybe I'll just give you a little kind of blah, blah, blah about the meter of the poem and its rhyme scheme. If you look at it, you'll see each stanza has 2 quatrains. That is 2 4-line parts. And each quatrain has a rhyme scheme. What is it? It's basically A, B, C, B. Lines 2 and 4 rhyme in each quatrain. So head and thread, out and trout, aflame, my name, hair and air, and so on. What is the meter? Well, before we have seen iambic pentameter, which would be this is iambic tetrameter. The only difference is it has weak, strong, 4 beats per line, not 5. 4 beats per line. So it's just... Some people think that a 4-beat line seems a little more sing-song. This has a very clear rhythm going to it. And it sounds more sing-songy. The rhyme is more apparent. The half lines, you can hear the half lines, you can hear the full lines, right? If you were to compare, I went out to the hazelwood because a fire was in my head. It just has a kind of like more obvious rhythm to it than Shakespeare's sonnet, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, thou art more lovely and more temperate. Anyway, so that's just a way to think about rhyme and meter in a poem and what kind of effect it has when you listen to it. So that's all I have to share for today. I'll just ask you to give a reaction to the poem. And as usual, I'll wait to see you in our next video. Okay? Have a pleasant time.